Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Short Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Baxter, and today is episode 63 of the series. The Short Podcast is a weekly series where I bring on guests from the film and game industries to talk about their journey and thoughts on student education. The podcast is live on 11 other platforms such as Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and last but not least, we've got YouTube. If you guys are tuning in on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and as always, turn on notifications to be notified every single week when the podcast is live. It's 2020, people, and by gosh, are we starting off with a great guest. We've got Josh Lynch on the show. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I'm really happy to be here.
It means a lot. I'm so happy.
Cool.
As always, folks, before we can get into the podcast, most important thing, make sure to give Josh a follow on all his social media platforms. All his links will be in the description below, so you've got his ArtStation, his Instagram, you name it, and then most importantly, you got the Mentor Coalition. Make sure to tune in and check it out, and everything will be highlighted as the podcast goes along. So, as always, we'll just start off with good old introductions. Just tell us a wee bit about yourself, Josh, and what you do.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on, man. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, really good interviews. I'm 11 years in the industry now, which is kind of crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, man. Right now, I recently moved up to Seattle.
Okay.
My wife and I moved up here. I'm working as a principal material artist at a newer studio called Probably Monsters. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the side, I run Art of Josh Lynch and the Mentor Coalition. And so for anyone that doesn't know, the Art of Josh Lynch is like a lot of educational content focused around like substance. So like video tutorials, node packs, textures for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Mentor Coalition is it's what it sounds like. It's like a coalition of mentors. And so we host like a bunch of mentorships. I do materials. We've got really great mentors in environment art, stylized art, VFX, hard surface, character art, creature art, concept art, like level design. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anything because I don't want to upset any of my awesome mentors that I work with. But yeah, like we've got a good crew going, and I really love what we're doing, man.
That's
yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, because like that's the thing as well. Because like obviously it's like you're so you started off with environment art and stuff, and now you're doing texture art, and then you've branched out to mentoring. It's like you're doing everything, and it's great to see. And most importantly, like I said, when it comes to like the podcast, everyone who's tuning in, it's all about making the most of the sources you guys have available to you. And Josh Lynch is like that go-to guy, so I highly recommend for you guys to fully take advantage of the sources the Mentor Coalition has available. And not only that, is he also said his talks as well, so make sure to check them out. And we're going to be diving into deep into the discussion about the Mentor Coalition and bringing in certain topics, obviously regarding student education, etc. But I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, let's get into it, man.
Like before we get, I guess, straight into it, I just wanted to ask, like, what got you into art, or like when did art become a thing? Has it always been a thing for you?
Oh man, well,
it's the big question.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty good question. Like, it's one of those things that like evolved over several, like anything, right? It evolved over several years, and when I was in high school, like I took a bunch of photography classes. I like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I took art classes, but it was one of those things that like when you're doing it, you're like, this is fun, but I have to do a real job. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know what you mean.
So I remember one day, as I got later in high school, I forget what year it was, but they brought in someone from I don't even remember, some school, and she played a video for us. Some students made like they were like doing a lightsaber battle.
Oh, awesome! Right.
And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, how do you even do that? And she's like, this is one of the programs we offer. And I'm like, what? We like in that around that same time, I think we had FITM. I don't even know. I'm sure they're still around, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising.
Okay.
They came in and they were like talking about stuff. And I was like, oh, but that seems like more of the way to do it. Like that seems more real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, it's not, I think it's a lot clearer now, like what 3D art is than it was back then for me.
Yeah.
That's like so many years ago now, right? So anyway, yeah, like that kind of planted a little bit of a seed. And I would go to this bookstore after school with my friends, and we we would get a bunch of magazines and like a bunch of assholes and buy a coffee and then sit there and read the magazines for hours for free, instead of buying them.
Why not? Might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, all they do is they rent space in their rented space for products, and so I'm renting space,
Yeah.
So anyway, there were these like, oh yeah, dude. And so there was oh my god, I can't remember the name. There was like, I think some digital animation magazine.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. That reminds me of what that woman came into the school and she was talking to us about it. And I was like, that's interesting,
Yeah.
And then even then I was like, yeah, that's cool, but that's something for somebody else. And I remember I went to like junior college or community college, whatever you want to call it. And I was going along and my major was like photojournalism and finance.
Right. Okay.
And I had like one really bad semester.
And that just changed
everything. Was like, oh dude, I was like deathly afraid to talk to my parents about it. And man, my parents, who were like super supportive, my dad, like, my mom and dad sat me down and my dad was like, they didn't like yell at me. They just were like, what's going on? Because they were like, this is not like you.
Yeah.
And my dad, I just told him, I'm like, dude, I don't feel anything about it.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you're on the computer all the time and not in the way of like just messing around. Like you're into this stuff. Like you come out, you're talking to me about some, I don't even know what, Yeah, he's like, so maybe he's like, so maybe you should go like, see if you can turn that into like a career path.
Yeah.
And even then I was like, oh, maybe I'll go work on like processors or something.
It's a start.
So we went and we toured. I started to look. We went and looked at all these schools, and my parents like went with me to each school. And it was so awesome. And I picked UAT, which is a University of Advancing Technology. It's in Tempe, Arizona, which is a city in Phoenix, around Phoenix, where I'm from, Phoenix, Arizona.
Awesome.
And so I started there, man. And the reason I went there is they had a mocap room.
Oh, I'm excited already. Right, here we go.
And I was like, what the hell? And they were like showing me what you can do with it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like the lightsaber video in a way. And so that was my connection, right?
That was the kick.
Yeah. And so what I did was I sat down, like I thought you had to program. And so I sat down and I was like, oh, I want to sign up for all these programming classes. And they were like, yeah, but what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, I want to make art. And they're like, no. And so then they like helped me, kind of get on my way with everything. Yeah. And I went there, graduated and, and then I worked my first job at 2XL Games. I kind of wanted to frame the story that way because of course I played video games and of course I've watched movies and obviously they're very appealing to me.
Yeah, of course.
But you don't always know like, oh, you can go do that. Like you just kind of think that's off in some other world, like some magical place that churns out the content for you to consume,
Of course.
So like that. Yeah. Like there's many games, movies that I love and like thought were really cool. But it wasn't until I started to realize that all of that stuff was like that stuff. What I mean is like that career path was a viable thing. And like,
Yeah.
This is how this works, and this is what this could be for you, is when I really started to like pay attention to all these games that I love to play, like this is the soup, like this is how this is made.
Yeah.
You know, and then you immediately don't look at it anymore like, oh, here's my level up like for this shield. It's like, no, like this is what drives the player and that kind of stuff.
That's so awesome. Yeah, because
Yeah.
like that's the thing. It's like so many people who've came on the podcast. So I've interviewed about 70 people, and during all my time, like a lot of people, obviously, when they're starting out, they're always unaware of maybe doing this as a profession. And like I was literally the same as you. It was literally mocap that got me in for a film.
That's funny, man. Yeah,
it's a film. So it was a film called Tintin, and they were doing the motion capture. For Peter Jackson, and that's what kicked everything off. But it just like if you guys are tuning in, it's like no matter what your path is, it's just obviously just finding like the big question and getting the answers figured out and stuff. And it takes time. And the great thing about it is that everyone's path's different. And like you said, like Josh found his way, and the great thing that Josh said there is that he made the decision early on to go with his gut and especially like obviously it depends on where you live in that, but I'm aware obviously in America the education is pricey, and when it comes to obviously making certain big decisions, it's a bold move, but it's I have complete respect for it. So if you guys are tuning in, before we continue and stuff, I just want to say is that if you guys are like not sure and your gut's not like you don't feel it, you got to switch it up and try and follow your path and just keep going for it, because life's too short. You got to make the most of it and just keep going after it, because you're making art. You can't get any better.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
That's awesome. And so obviously like you're great at texturing, like you're insane at texturing, and like
thanks.
Obviously you started in environment art, etc. Can you kind of go into a wee bit of history just about like going down the path into texture art and so forth? That'd be great to hear. So like what got you into texture art?
Yeah. So I my first job full time anyway was I was like a junior artist, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they brought me in, and I was making. So the studio was 2XL Games.
Awesome.
And my mentor worked there, and so he helped me in kind of guiding me to prepare my stuff to get into that studio. And like I was an intern there, and then they hired me on full time. And that pedigree of that, my mentor, by the way, is Greg McDonald, super fucking awesome guy. But anyway, the pedigree of that team is racing games. So they're all a bunch of ex-Rainbow Studios devs, and this is way back, but like there's a bunch of racing games they made, and they went off and they made a new studio called 2XL Games, and they put out Baja Edge of Control, and I didn't work on that, but I came in like right after that. And at that time was like when the iPod Touch and stuff was coming out.
Right.
And like the iPhone and everything. And so we made games for that. And so I cut my teeth on mobile, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely. And mobile, when it was like just start, like no one knew what worked, you know?
Yeah.
And so, so anyway, I did a bunch of vehicles for them, and then I started to make props, and then I started to do a bit of environment art. And over my time there, oh man, how many games? It was many games. It was really cool. It was a really good experience for me.
Yeah.
Because we worked on games pretty quick compared to AAA, which can take like years to make.
Of course.
Some projects anyway, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I got to make like one project, and then I would be like, oh, like we would talk about it, and I would say like, oh, this is what I liked, what I didn't like. So on some projects, I would just make a bunch of props. On some projects, I did UI work. On some projects, I did texturing. And so anyway, to get to the root of your question, I that was like the first time I did any texturing. And the first time I did any texturing in production was I made like textures for these vehicles, and so that was really cool. But this was kind of pre PBR, right? So there was no like, oh hey, you know, let's make this rubber look really good and this metal, you know.
Yeah.
Like we were making stuff on mobile that was like it had to run, and so we didn't have super awesome like kind of
no generators.
Oh, dude, no. So right, and so so anyway, that kind of taught. I guess the point what I'm trying to make there is I learned a lot of, well, quote unquote, like tricks or like what makes things feel good or believable without all the fancy shaders.
Awesome.
And so that was really cool to take that in my tool set early and go forward. And then I started to do more high poly, low poly modeling and baking, and I made like some cool textures on this generator in Mudbox. And I remember like one of the guys coming by and being like, oh, hey, you're pretty good at making that look lived in. Like it looks like it's been sitting out in the sun for a while. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that's kind of cool. Like I didn't think anything of it, but looking back on it now, like that's kind of everything, because I started to really look at it like, and I would ask him like, what makes that feel good to you? And he would tell me, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to remember that. Right. And so I started to really pay attention to other games, other people's art, and the world around me, which is the most important thing, and how materials behave and feel. And so I started to get really into it. But there wasn't at the time really any jobs for like texture artists. You were a prop artist or environment artist, something like that, right?
Yep.
And so I just kept going, and every job I went to after that was like, I had the comment of, hey, you're pretty good at this. And I remember at my second job at Tryon, the lead, I got hired as a prop artist, which is like what I wanted. I was like, this is the end game for me. Like I'm fucking set,
Yeah.
And my lead was like, hey, we really want you to make some world textures for us, and we want you to maybe try some lighting. And I was like, no, I'm good.
Awesome.
I just laugh at this because I was so like, oh my God. And I remember he was a great lead for me to have at the time in my career.
Yep.
And so anyway, he was like, no, I think you probably want to like try this. You have a good knack for storytelling with the props you do and like the textures. And so we want you to put some of that flavor into world art, and like, you really into like how lighting reacts to things. And I still was like, no, I don't think so,
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you tell me you want to be like senior. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, when you're a senior, like you worry about, like, he kind of did like a hand motion, and he's like, we had the game up, and he's like, you worry about all of this and not that mailbox right there that you made. And I was like, oh shit. It was pretty good. It was good to hear that. And I never really thought of it like that. And he's like, yeah, so you're going to have to like think about like everything. And man, I think like after that, I really started to, think about everything. And I take that mindset into every job I go to, every project I work on, every personal project I work on is like, how is this going to sit in the world? Like, what does this mean? Why am I making this? What's the storytelling? What's the narrative here? So it really changed me, man.
No, that's awesome.
It was good stuff. Yeah.
Because like that's the thing. It's always about like obviously when it comes to all the other disciplines within our field, etc. It's like it all has to tie together, and obviously it's good to branch out and acknowledge that. So if you're a texture artist, understanding lighting, whatever it is, understanding how the pipeline works and how to kind of adapt to that. Like, because obviously, especially like in our portfolio, like we get carried away of trying to go like for example, say we're making a texture, we go the highest res possible, but then you kind of have to take a step back and think, well, will that work in the game that maybe in the future that I might be working on? And you're just trying to like, figure out, like, obviously everything's getting better, like there's less limitations when it comes to certain things, but because there's less limitations, we then push the bar again, then it becomes less limitations again. So it's just to that kind of healthy balance and accepting and acknowledging the fact that it's a team and you have to work in different areas. So obviously the main thing when it comes to the Shooter podcast is education, etc. And the main thing that we want to talk about today is the Mentor Coalition. So so tell us a bit about it. What got you started?
I would talk to. I guess I'm trying to figure out where to start here.
Take your time.
I hosted a bunch of them on my own, right? So, my thing was like I had a number of people when I started to make substance designer materials. I had good friends that were like, "Hey, you should really do tutorials," and I'm like, "No, I don't think so." Like, I don't like, I had a lot of doubt,
Okay.
And they were like, "No, you teach really good. Like, you teach classes here at the studio," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's different," and they're like, "It's not different. It's the same thing." But for me, it was very different because everybody was going to be listening, right? And so anyway, I did those, and they were really well received, and so I'm very thankful that people pushed me into that because I'm very passionate about teaching. Like every job I had, even at my first job, I was like, "Hey, this is how we're gonna do, some of these edge bevels, like on this prop or whatever," right? Just trying to show people things, and so anyway. I did those tutorials. They were well received. And then I had this idea in my mind to host like a masterclass because when I was in like school, I would go to like conferences. And actually, when I was in college, I thought I was going to be a character rigger.
Okay, awesome.
Like I was like, oh yeah, like I loved it, dude. I was like, I'm painting weights, but that didn't work out, obviously.
Yeah.
So I pivoted to environment art.
Okay.
But anyway, when I was in school, I remember going to SIGGRAPH and like taking some master class on like rigging, and it was like very intense. But I was like, this is the amazing, like awesome stuff, right? And then so I was doing the video tutorials, and I was like, this is remembering back to that experience. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a master class. Like I want to try to do that. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I'm not going to get to talk to anyone really. And a big thing for me with the video tutorials was I love making them, but I don't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to people, and help them like directly.
One-on-one.
And I was like, man, yeah, one-on-one, man. And, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this master class. So maybe I'll do like 5 people in the master class, or I don't know what I was thinking, And some of my friends that worked at Insomniac at the time, Xavier and Ryan Beno, they were doing like mentorships. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, what's up with that? And I remember seeing some like concept art people doing them. And I asked them about it, and they were like, yeah, you should totally do one. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not like a typical thing you grow up with, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Even though I had like really good mentors in my life, I never just did a mentorship. Right. I was like, what the hell? So they explained it to me, and I did it. And I remember, dude, like I put it out and it sold out in like an hour. And I was like, whoa, like that's crazy.
That's amazing.
That's crazy, dude. And then I felt like, I was like, oh, that's a lot of pressure.
It's like, gosh darn it.
Yeah. But so anyway, I did those for a while, like a number of months. I forget exactly. I'd have to look it up, but I would say maybe at least a year, if not close to 2.
Okay.
On my own, like just sessions running them.
Awesome.
And so because I became known in the industry for like materials and like teaching and mentorships, I had a number of conversations with my peers in the industry about like mentorships. And I'm like, well, you can do them, like, and I would explain to them like what I just explained to you guys, which is like, I had a lot of like hesitation to do it. But once you do it, it's like anything. You open yourself up to vulnerability, and then you just learn from it, right?
Of course.
And it's like, okay, it's not going to be the perfect, damn thing the first time, So but they like no one would really want to do it.
Yep.
But what I remember, I found like a commonality in their response, which was, well, no one's going to want to, like, I don't have the platform, I don't have the audience, no one's going to want to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll make the damn platform. You know, like, so I just did it. And awesome. I made the Mentor Coalition, and I had invited people that had talked to me about mentorships before. And we've just been rocking and rolling ever since, man.
That's
like sometimes you start the thing, you know, and that's it, dude. Like we're not out here trying to like be a university, right? We're trying to offer a really one-on-one focused environment between the mentor and the mentee, right? And so that's what we're out here doing, man. I love it. I think it's going really good.
I'm so happy for you, man. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
Keep killing it. And so everyone who's tuning in, like I said, you'll be seeing it right now. It'll be live on the screen. But all the links will be in the description below as well. And like when it comes to obviously, like you nailed it there. It's like it's taking the first step for anything. Like even like example, it's always the hardest thing to do. And but it's the biggest leap in progressing as a person, and it's just down to accepting the fact that like it's a chance for you to just make the most of it. Like that was the same thing, for example, when I started the podcast. I remember I put the first episode out, and I was getting I posted it everywhere, and I was getting lots of replies saying, oh, you don't work so at the time I didn't work in the industry and stuff, so people were like, oh, we can't get feedback from, like, I don't believe you what you're saying, etc., just because I didn't have the experience. And I was just like,
really?
Yeah, like, people were like, didn't like, it's like, do you know when you start certain things, it just depends. It's like, because I was so young,
I know,
starting out and stuff,
I know a little bit about that. Yeah, I know a little bit about that, man. Yeah,
but
people casting doubt on you and stuff. Yeah, I know enough about that.
So yeah, exactly.
So what was your first podcast about? Like, well, I don't think I know that.
Well, yeah, that's
Can you tell me?
So my first podcast was literally just me talking. Well, I put it on Polycount. That was the first place I put it. But obviously, I love Polycount. Yeah. The Polycount was great.
Polycount's fantastic, dude. I owe a lot to Polycount.
And like they give so much great feedback and stuff.
I
did my first ever podcast, and it was literally just all about like mindset and motivation and stuff.
That's great.
But some people just. You get certain messages, but I'm always one of those people that I just like learn and grow. That's what I've always done, and I'm just like, okay, right, that means I learn. But the reason why I want to bring this up is just because, like, no matter what, where you are when you're starting out, it's just about just keep going with it, and just giving it the time. And no matter what hurdles you come across, you hear it all the time, and it's just down to giving that first start. Like you said there about obviously having the confidence to start. Obviously people listening to you talk and getting used to it, but after you get to your third attempt, you're pretty much kind of rolling, if you know what I mean. It's just getting the first few kind of ones, you're just like, right, this is a bit, obviously you stumble. Like when I first started the podcast, I was stumbling on my words a few times, but
sure,
I'm now 60, this is my 63rd episode. I'm now, it's just a normal chit chat, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, man. Like, of course, in my summation of things, it might come across that like, oh, it's just very easy. It was easy for Josh or easy for these people or whatever. It's not like that, man.
Yeah.
That you when you summarize things, like, you know, like you're not gonna go into every bit. You know, of course, there was a lot of like hesitation or doubt or whatever, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, like, if you keep pushing, it's gonna work. That's how the world is, right? Like, if you really push it, the things you're doing, you might not get there as quick as someone else. Like, there's plenty of people that I went to school with that are like were way better artists than me, and they got jobs before me. Like, it took me a year to get a full-time job after I graduated.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be like the same for every person, you know?
It's just about like you have to be patient and persistent
Right.
and just keep going at it. Like everyone says it all the time, and it's just you just literally have to keep doing it. And no matter what, even if it takes you 10 years, so be it. If it takes you 10 years, it takes you 10 years. And
Yeah.
like that's the same thing. Like obviously we're talking about mentoring today. We're talking about teaching and stuff. All these
Right.
things take time. And speaking of like the mentoring side of things, like obviously like the one thing I love the most is, and you said it literally right at the start, is like the one-on-one aspect. And like that's the thing I value the most, because I did a course called Animation Mentor, a Disney course,
Right.
and it was amazing opportunity. I loved it, and because that's what kind of that was like in my first year, I was trying to decide between animation and doing 3D, like 3D modeling, etc. And the reason why I loved the course at the time was the fact that I got to have like this one-on-one, like not like a few hour discussion with a person either from Disney or DreamWorks, etc. And like they would fully break down everything. And
Yeah.
like just tell us a wee bit about like obviously I'm not sure what you can and cannot say, but just tell us a wee bit more about like the actual mentoring side of things, as in like what you guys do. And obviously like you said at the start, so you do obviously a range of awesome courses. So you do animation, level design, character art, you name it. Like what else? Like I know also on your obviously your website, you can sign up to like the emails and stuff to get emails through about like what's happening
Right.
and so forth. But I'm just wondering
Yeah.
what else happens on the Mentor Coalition.
Yeah. So I appreciate the question. So we offer, like we've talked about, like a really focused one-on-one mentorship experience.
Mm-hmm.
We also offer a Discord community.
Okay.
And so all of our mentors are on there, kind of checking on things. And like we offer like six hours for each mentorship, right?
Wow,
And
right,
so the
awesome.
way we typically break it down is it's like 4 calls. So 4 calls are around an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
There is some flexibility there, but that's the standard kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And so the reason we just found that time to be really good, enough time to, because you kind of got to warm up, right? Like it's not like chopping wood. Hey, I'm showing up, like, here, I'm going to chop 100 pieces of wood.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of like conversational aspect to it, opening up the file, talking about things, recapping from the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like when you sign up, right? We reach out to you, we introduce you to your mentor, and then the dialogue begins.
Awesome.
And so in there, you kind of start to talk about like the mentees' like ideas are for the mentorship, where they feel like they're doing good, where they feel like they need to improve. And so when I do the introduction to the mentor, to the person that signed up, I send over like a list of questions to kind of get the conversation started.
Okay.
And so from there on, man, like you start to get on the Discord calls, like you schedule times with your mentor, and then you just get to rocking and rolling, man. So everything we do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, on you go. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's fine.
Oh yeah, my bad, dude. So we like, the way it works is like in the one-on-one calls, we give you very detailed feedback. You share your screen with us. We share our screen with you.
Mm-hmm.
We get hands-on in the file. So like if you're struggling with something technically and it's like, oh man, I don't know what to click here or what's not working right, we can help you with that. Sometimes the mentorships are very like, well, at least some of the calls are a little bit more high level, like artistic feedback. It's really open-ended, right? Like everybody's different. And so I remember like when I was in school, I would take a class and maybe some weeks I would just be like, this is such a waste of time. I already know this.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, I didn't grasp this and I don't know how to get a hold of the instructor. Some of my peers maybe didn't get it either. And then you feel like you're falling behind, and it creates a lot of anxiety, dude.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So with what we're doing, like I wanted to erase that. I want you as a mentee to show up to the call and just feel like we're going to kill it. Like we're going to figure this out. You're going to walk away feeling super motivated for the next call. After the mentorship's over, hopefully you feel motivated to go out and like work hard for the next several months on your art.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of my goal with it. Like why I started the whole thing is to kind of cut out a lot of the slack, so to speak, of like, here's this 16-week course syllabus that may or may not suit you. Like some people come to me and they say, I want to learn how to make really cool roof tiles. And we just do that.
Yeah.
We spend the whole time doing that. Some people come to me and they say, hey, I really want to know more of the technical side of Substance Designer. We get into that, man.
That's amazing.
Like it's very open-ended, and we go at the speed you're comfortable with and the amount of info that you want to like take in, you know?
Definitely.
The thing that we also offer is like call them like mentorship notebooks.
Oh,
and so basically mentorship notebooks.
Okay.
So basically what they are is like, it's a summation of all the notes and files and images of any feedback we've given. And it's kind of like from the start to the finish.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay.
So you can kind of look at like where we were, where we are at the end.
Yeah. That's an incredible idea.
You have access to it for life. Like it's, yeah.
That's the first time I've ever heard something like that. That's an amazing idea.
Yeah. So it's something that like we didn't always do, or I didn't always do, you know, but as you know, like we talked about, as you do things, you learn. And I'm like, man, you know what? Like, dude, when we're done here, like, how do I know that they're going to remember like this stuff I told them?
Yeah, of course.
You know, a lot of it's on Discord. It's very conversational. And so once we started to do like tracking the notes a little bit better, it was like, oh, it's crazy. Yeah. It was good.
Having your own like guide, that's amazing. Like when it comes to like obviously education, like you said, like you nailed it there when you were talking about obviously like you don't want to be obviously getting taught all the things all the time that you've heard 1,000 times, and sometimes it's so hard finding like the right information out there, because obviously there's so many content creators, there's so many people creating different things, and people just want to get straight to the point. And the fact that like the Mentor Coalition does that, and it's like there's once again, it's not just texturing, it's everything. So if you guys are tuning in, like you said, it's like obviously Josh is a master at texture and environment art, but he's bringing in so many great other mentors from all these other niches and stuff, and it's about utilizing that and realizing that if like guys, this is an opportunity for you guys to make the most of. So highly recommend, once again, check the link in the description. Once again, I just want to say as well, like, so when it comes to like mentoring, so this is obviously just like, this is kind of a more broader scope on the topic of mentoring. If there's people out there who are wanting to get into mentoring, is there any kind of main advice you would kind of give them? Like, is there any kind of like, what's your thoughts on like what makes a good mentor? Obviously, we've touched on it quite a lot there, but is there anything?
Oh, you mean like people hosting them?
Or like people hosting them, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever been asked that.
That's a good question. Then I'm happy then.
Yeah. Oh man,
I beat you on the spot.
Kind of like caught off guard. Yeah. No, that's good though. That's good. Dude, I would say it's oh wow, there's so much. Like when you're doing the mentorships, or just being a mentor, like forget it. Let's go big picture. Like forget mentorships is like a thing that somebody pays for.
Yep.
But just being a mentor in general is like you're guiding people, right? So you're sharing your experience with somebody that's less experienced than you. You're not telling them like verbatim how, in my opinion anyway, how to handle or to do something specific. It's like, here's how you would approach this as a problem solving thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it like like you have a toolbox, right? And the more you add to it, the more you can solve things as you go. So I would think of it like that, like just really guiding people.
Definitely.
Big picture, right?
Yeah,
but if you're thinking about hosting mentorships, I think the thing to remember is like a lot of people, man, everybody's background's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's experience level's different. You're going to work with people from all around the world, hopefully, and their cultures are different.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, man. I've worked with people from like, oh man, like Australia, Europe, like Africa, India,
Literally just everywhere from around the
like
world.
Canada, Mexico.
That's amazing.
Like Brazil,
Yeah,
it's super cool, man. Russia.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Because
so that's not to be like braggadocious. It's more to say like you have to be aware of like how to work with people from different cultures, and like they're going to be nervous.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, hey, I don't speak very good English. And I'm like, man, that's fine. Like, that's not what this isn't like a test, like I'm here to help you. So like, let's just get into it.
Yep.
I hope that answers your question, man. I feel like I didn't do a good job there at all answering that question.
Great. Man, that was amazing. That was awesome. Because like that was the thing. So when I was doing the Disney course, so we did Google Hangout. And basically what would happen, so you would have your one-on-one sessions with your mentors, and then you would have a group session. So basically there was, I think there was about 8 of us, and they would do like a talk, obviously like a kind of your typical broad kind of, right, what we're going to do, and then everyone kind of hears what's the kind of plan, and then they would then go, right, what's a specific thing that you want to do. So then there's obviously, once again, like you said, covering the main thing that you wanted to do. So when we were doing that, obviously, like the great thing about that was obviously you got to meet lots of different people, like you said, all people from around the world, and like that's the great thing about what you were saying there is when you start something out, when you're doing a mentorship, you're also building like relationship with people, and you're giving people
that's the better way to put it.
Well, it's like that first kind of contact for them. Like for example, if you're mentoring me and I'm starting out, and the fact that obviously like you're insane at what you do, so it's a great contact. You're learning everything, you're learning like the right things, because like that's the thing, and that's the reason why I do the podcast. Like obviously, like I love the education, so I love student education in the sense that I was really blessed where I went in terms of how I was taught, etc. But I'm aware that a lot of people don't get taught the right things. Unfortunately, these things happen, and it's just down to finding the best path for you. So maybe if you think maybe student education isn't the right way for you, give mentoring a go. You never know.
Right.
And try these things out, because it's the only way you're going to be able to get like the final answer or like, the right answer. Well, how can I say it? It's like obviously different studios teach different methods in terms of how to approach certain things, but at least you'll get a better understanding of how things at least work.
Yes. So there's something you said that kind of I want to respond to, or at least it made me think of something. So the way that like for the Mentor Coalition, if you don't mind me going back to that a little bit,
you can plug it for the rest of the podcast. We are Mentor Coalition today.
We do like the main kind of thing for me that I think of with it is like you have direct access to AAA talent and workflows, right? So if you're unsure, like, hey, is this how I should do things? You can literally ask like a senior environment artist or like an art director, like, how is this good? Like, what's your take on this? Am I like technically proficient? Am I artistically skilled? Like, am I presenting my stuff in a good way? So all of those things, like, you can just literally ask. Yeah. And I remember like when I was in school, I didn't have any of that. Right. I had good instructors, but there was nobody like working at the studios that I wanted to work at that I could talk to. Right. That I could sign up for something and say, hey, is this good? Like, or learn from them, So that's really what we're trying to offer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because like that's the
my
thing.
My cat's up here. Sorry.
It's all right.
He like fell over. I don't know if you heard that. Sorry, I didn't want that to be distracting.
It's fine, man. It's not a problem at all. Because like when it comes to like the whole kind of thing about education, like that's the thing, and that's the reason why, like for example, like there's so many great podcasts, and I'm really glad that people are doing. Like for example, you got Alex.
Oh
Bellows,
I love it, dude. Yes,
like that's like I just think it's great that there's so many people doing content, and I really hope more people begin to do it. Because that was the reason why I started the podcast, was the fact that I felt that there were so many questions not getting answered, and I was just like, right, if for example, it's how I applied, it's how I do like anything I do. It's like if I don't know what the answer is, then you just find it out, and if no one's going to do it for you, obviously you have to do it yourself. And I was like, right, what can I do? I like a good chit chat, so I like a conversation. So start a podcast, and it's the same thing for mentoring. I think everyone like give it a go. You never know; it might be something for you, even if you're not. Maybe for example, what we were touching on earlier, and what Josh was saying about having the confidence to start talking, etc. Through like voice recording or talking to people on a Discord or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like just all you need to do is try it once. And if you love teaching, but you might be a wee bit shy, you only need to talk to one person. It doesn't have to be a class. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like obviously we always put like the worst scenario in our heads when we first start something out. We're like, okay, we have to do this, and that. But if you just take that step back and figure out, right, what am I good at? So if you're for example, if you're a senior environment artist or a senior concept artist right now, and like you got the skills there. So if you're tuning in, figure out maybe if you're trying to figure out what you want to do next in your career, maybe mentorship's the way to go. And you never know unless you give it a go. So look into it and just try different things.